You recently joined the editorial board for the Polkadot main account.
I'm definitely not a fan of Ethereum.
Why?
It's the first time I'm talking about it publicly. I'm in it for the tech. Like, I'm looking into consensus stuff, architectures, usability, and product. Avalanche, Solana, Aptos, Sui. That's all I'm currently kind of exploring. I kind of really got into Solana. Yeah, I met SBF.
Oh, hey guys. Yeah, it's all good.
The big boss.
The launch team wishes you good luck and Godspeed.
Space Monkeys, blasting off with Irvin. He's a Polkadot OG, meme coin pre-seed investor, and JPEG connoisseur. We've tried to get him on the show for a couple years, and I don't know what happened, but we got him here. Very lucky to have him. Irvin, welcome to Space Monkeys.
Thanks a bunch. Actually, what happened was I was looking back at like the early day photos.
Yeah.
And I just realized, you know, how like your trajectory, right? So I think the show's super big now. Everything's high quality. The content is phenomenal.
Thank you.
All right, I was watching the BitTensor one. It's going, you know, outside of the eco, kind of bringing more exposure to Polkadot, but also getting to hear the voices outside of the ecosystem, right? What they're thinking or how they're thinking. So
it's nice. It's the right time to do that. And
yeah.
I just want to say thanks for saying that, but I really owe it to our team. I don't know what it is about this ecosystem, but there's a lot of people who want to be part of something, who want to be part of telling the story of Polkadot, and they seem to have gathered around the Kus, and we're really fortunate to have that happen.
I was telling my friend that you guys are the voice of Polkadot. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I would say that.
Nice, thanks a lot. What turned you on to Polkadot? Like, you've been in the crypto space for how long?
Since around 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Well, what were you doing back then?
Bitcoin stuff.
Of course, what else?
Just, Bitcoin development. Then met a few friends. One of my friends, my former co-founder, started doing like a Bitcoin payment startup.
Wow.
I ended up exiting around 2014. I think we were way too early and way too young. And then actually I would say, you know, that's how I also kind of went into Polkadot afterwards because of the values and the things that were happening early on with Bitcoin. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So, so you exited 2014. Who was buying Bitcoin payment services in 2014? That seems pretty forward thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Honestly, look. So here's how it was for the early days, right?
Okay.
Like around probably 2013, 2014, like Tim Draper and a lot of Silicon Valley people were just dropping money. Like they'd see you like talking about Bitcoin or something that was related to Bitcoin. They're like, hey, you want to invest, you want to hop on a call, right? So those people were, but at the same time, many people forget that a lot of institutions are starting to consider, you know, Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, particularly because there's a little bit of a hype and a bubble, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not going to mention the details of the deal or who was, but you could kind of like search around. But essentially, because the technology was so nascent, right? And there wasn't much content. Like if you were back then in like around those times, you couldn't go on Google or like, you know, any sites and search, you know, what is a blockchain? How does it work?
Sure.
You know, like very in depth. So big institutions will like kind of try to acquire or hire people that were in the space to come as like domain experts or say, oh, okay, shoot, you built all this tech. Let's try to quote unquote use it. That's
okay,
like
gotcha.
But from then on, there's other people I would say, you know, like we're more mature, more experienced launching startups or companies, which kind of went off to become the Coinbases, et cetera, you know, Kraken. So
what values from back then got you excited about Polkadot once you heard about it?
If anybody goes on Bitcoin Talk, right, or you just kind of search like the oldest articles, one of the cool parts about, you know, early Bitcoin community or quote unquote cryptocurrency community was the cypherpunks.
Yeah.
Movement, right? So like people forget that, for example, one of the use cases that people were thinking about for Bitcoin was, you know, payments, remittances, and particularly in emerging economies, right? Like countries from Africa, etc. And back then, people would talk about how there were these issues with these emerging economies, right? For example, one of the issues back then that kind of stuck to me because, I mean, I'm not gonna say, but like my family sort of experienced this stuff early on was stuff dealing with land titles. So like early on, even up to this day, I'd say that some of these emerging economies, right, they would get scammed trying to buy property. So you had the stories of families in like, for example, Africa and so forth saying, my entire life savings just got wiped away because I bought piece of land, and it turned out that it was fake. And so people back then would go ahead and talk about, hey, we need to put a registry, put this on the blockchain so we can have it be audited and know, provenance, etc., issuance. And those are the use cases that I was very excited and interested in, because essentially disrupted the way that the system worked, this intermediary, but also kind of provide some value to these economies, right? So this is kind of how hear Gavin, even Rob and the rest of the crew talking about that, is that notion of Web3 or these cypherpunk values that are still there. After this day, right? Like after this fucking point, what is it, 2024? It's still there. It's the only ecosystem, and I'll say it, like I think I said it on Twitter, so you guys can't FUD me because I do work with different ecosystems with my friends. I love the tech. Is that Polkadot is one of the only ones, if not the only kind of ecosystem and tech that kind of tries to at least be as closely as possible to, the cypherpunk values.
Yeah, it feels like at this conference, this Sub-Zero conference, we're kind of ready to lean back into it as well. It seems like, as you're saying, kind of that differentiator still to this day.
And it should be. I think you were hosting, Sean Tabrisi, and he did mention the cypherpunk values.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him, doing the question, I said, I was like, actually, it's exactly right. But right now, if I go on the socials, right, if I go on Twitter, on the content, I can tell you that I cannot find anything that tells me, Polkadot is one of the ecosystems that stands by these cypherpunk values, and this is what it is. Like, I think we're missing that as an ecosystem.
Sure.
That part, that exposure, because it's been already over a decade or so, since kind of like the Bitcoin initial hype, and people don't remember this. They've forgotten about it, right? I mean, I think we're building good tech with other ecosystems, like Solana, Avalanche, Aptos, Sui, I think amazing tech. But nobody across the blockchain space, kind of remembers these fundamentals, these principles, right? That kind of made all this stuff possible.
You recently joined the editorial board for the Polkadot main account, really cool initiative run by Evan Thomas, who we've had on the show. What spurred you to become more active in that way, and what are you hoping to do during your term?
So for those who so I actually took a break from tweeting a while back. I run a different account and I talk about it, but my personal one, I took a break after the FTX hack.
Oh, okay.
But I do joke around a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of my tweets before would get a lot of exposure, and it's just someone who runs one of the quote unquote communities, Polka House, etc.
Yeah.
I also talk a lot about different things, and I just saw this come up, and the guys kind of reached out. People told me you produce a lot of great content on Twitter. How we do this. Then I said sure. I mean, I just sent a quick blurb, and the guys were happy to have me. And but one of the things that kind of supporting this is not just in the memes or funny content, but I think structuring the way that the tone of the account or the content is delivered, right? Because that really matters when you're doing social media, or the way that the words are structured or how big the content is, even it does matter, right?
Yeah.
If you want to add more memes to your social media account, like you're an ecosystem or a business, on Tuesday afternoon, you drop a meme, but on Tuesday morning, you have a very serious tone, right? I don't know, this is today's, tech update of Polkadot roadmap,
Sure.
JAM, etc. Your audience is going to get a shift, right, from seeing those memes. So there are different ways, right? Like one of the things that I said was if we're going to drop these updates on ecosystem, products, instead of being too serious, if we want to introduce meme, how about we say, here's your weekly dose of Polkadot. It's a different tone, right?
Yeah.
So things like that. And I'm doing it because it's just kind of interesting. I want to provide and support. I think, I'm usually a very private person no matter what. So, I mean, I think many people tell me that I'm involved with many chains actually. So
that you're what?
I'm involved with many chains. A friend, if she watches this, she's gonna know who I'm talking about. She's like, you're in a romantic relationship with too many chains, But there's very few because I'm picky, because I really understand the tech. But from that angle, it's the social media part. I just want to be able to contribute back and be a little more public.
Okay, well, let's talk about your side chains here. Who's some of the hottest chains that you're dealing with?
I'm definitely not a fan of Ethereum.
Not a fan. Why?
There's various reasons. There's like
okay.
personal reasons, but I think fundamentally, look, Gavin is the guy who came up with like, you know, the entire specification, the first implementation. And I kind of personally know this because during that time, I was working on the job implementation of, you know, the actual client itself.
Wow.
And that was when I was like working in TradFi and finance. I was discovering this stuff. So I kind of got to send messages and ask questions back and forth. So I kind of knew that. But like if you talk to Gavin and you watch also what he talks about more recently, he kind of does talk about the limitations, right? That he understood when Ethereum was shipped, that I think in your show, I think I asked for the video, right? Where he says it was a toy, what do you call it?
Yeah. That was actually when we first met. He said it's a test net. He said it was a test net.
I think it's like a toy design or something like that. It's like, it's a word that he said.
Maybe,
like
yeah.
I think that's okay, right? I mean, like innovation, sometimes happen exponentially or gradually, right? And doing something for 0 to 1 takes time. So, and I mean in a sense because like Ethereum is a great ecosystem. You know, a lot of innovations that happen because of these innovations, but like the development mindset and the research mindset is very different from what I think perhaps it should be. Like, you know, taking more risks early on to redesign or re-implement certain things to make it more optimal, having more people who are both experienced or see these limitations and trying to innovate on instead of doing some patchwork, right? I'm personally not a fan of like L3s. Sure. I think they're L4s, right?
Yeah, sure.
And stuff like that. But overall, it's a great ecosystem, you know. But the thing is just, the last thing I'll mention though is that it's not that I'm bashing on it, but it's also recognition that Ethereum is a victim of its own success.
Yeah, true.
It's at a point where you cannot innovate as hard because there's so much value locked into this infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
But if early on it would have been a little bit different, maybe like Solana, I don't know, and people make fun of it, right?
You like Solana?
Yeah, no, actually it's like, you know, Avalanche, Solana, then we have, you know, Aptos, Sui, and I think that's about it. That's all I'm currently kind of exploring.
Okay.
I understand. And it's particular for the quote unquote technical innovations and research. And, you know, I even talked to Web3 Foundation, some of the researchers, right? Like, for example, about Avalanche consensus, right? Could it be possible to leverage that consensus model or improve it and apply it to Polkadot? Not exactly, because you know how things are designed and architected in Polkadot, but perhaps maybe on a parachain. And it kind of makes it more decentralized because you can increase the number of correlators, etc. And then you have, you know, blockchains like, you know, like Solana, which I kind of really got into Solana. Yeah, I met SBF and then the team from FTX who kind of like showed me, but it was the fact that, you know, Anatoly and Roger, particularly Anatoly as an engineer, kind of told me that like he didn't care much for what Ethereum was doing. And at the time, if you remember, right, like everybody was just copying and forking the EVM. Yeah. Everybody wanted to be, you know, EVM compatible. And yeah, you had early chains like EOS, etc. You know, even Neo, if everybody remembers Neo, the Ethereum killer. But if you're an engineer, right, you could tell that these were not as architected or thought of as Solana, right? Because Solana just wanted to create something that was more simple and that leveraged actually existing technologies like Rust, or what we call the RBPF, which is kind of what runs the programs on Solana. And then, you know, Sui and Aptos, like I mentioned, it's like, you know, it came from Facebook. There's the Facebook chains, you know, like corporate enterprise chains, but there's a lot of innovation, a lot of great people, you know. I think we're always going to get a new generation of blockchains, new people that are going to create something new, and they're at the cusp of this. You know, I think people are calling it like what? Blockchain 3.0, 2.0s or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're interested in these chains just because of the research and the tech that they bring up?
I'm very research focused. You know, as much as people tell me that I'm into meme coins and stuff like that, I'm in it for the tech.
It excites you, yeah.
I'm in it for the tech. Like I'm looking to consensus stuff, architectures, and usability and product, right? That's one of the things that people talk about in Solana, that they focus very on the product usability. And the same thing for like the other new chains that are coming up, right? Like one thing that I'll tell you is like if you look at Ethereum and you want to do something like, I don't know, log in with Google and not have to pay, you know, for gas, you need like 5 different integrations. And the same thing for Polkadot probably, right? Depending on the parachain. On these new chains, you don't. It's just one single integration, right? Just because of the, you know, the core constructs of the
So what's going on with Solana? Like I heard like they're talking about parallelization. Are they talking about like, they're not calling them L2s, but they're calling them chain extensions? Is that right? Well, like what's going on over there?
I think, okay, so like this is like the candid. I always talk about this too, by the way, in the chat. So it's the first time I'm talking about it publicly. But
right.
I think the situation is that, you know, like we had this like issue. We saw this issue where essentially priority fees, or quote unquote, let's call it just in general, gas and Solana kind of spiked up during certain times. And one of these times was when essentially someone did some kind of Bitcoin mining project on chain on Solana, right? And that kind of triggered a lot of the ecosystem as a whole to say, oh wow, this Solana need quote unquote L2s. And then what I mentioned some things happen is because there's currently, I'd say, probably two camps of people doing these quote-unquote L2s or network extensions. I think on one camp is the Ethereum peeps who they launched their L2s there and made a lot of money.
Sure.
And they're like, fuck it, we're going to run it back. L2s on Solana.
Okay.
And so that was kind of like the hot thing, you know, like early this year until... You know, Anatoly was like, yeah, no, it's not going to work just simply an L2 because Solana L1 is always going to be competitive against the L2. And if you're just trying to fork, you know, the Solana L1 and make it as L2, you're going to have a tough time. And so then the other camp, right, I would say is people who kind of understand more the architecture of Solana, because it's a little bit different from the EVM. There's a lot of different things. And I'll tell you that the code base is getting cleaned up. It's not the best. And so these folks kind of understand that there's, you know, particular bottlenecks, you know, within, let's say, the account model or the way you process transactions. And they're making a different kind of like, quote unquote, L2 setup. And, you know, Solana, actually Austin Federa kind of quoted this thing as network extensions just because they want to generalize it in a sense, I guess, that you could use the Solana virtual machine for other things, for rollups, L2s, but maybe side chains, right? Or I'd say, and I wrote about this, maybe put in the SVM as a runtime on a parachain, right? Yeah, and stuff like that, and some stuff that I worked on. But I wrote about this, and, you know, want to give a shout out to Turbine, which is running the Solana research program, which is funded by Solana Foundation and ANSA. And so I'm one of the folks kind of leading that side of things.
Okay, wait, what's Turbine?
Turbine is an entity that focuses on like educating developers and also
okay, so this is supported by the Solana Foundation.
Supported, yeah, Foundation and Anagram. So the research program.
So you're doing research within Turbine?
I'm setting up what we're gonna need to research about. So,
okay. You're kind of you're going to lead research, lead the direction.
Yeah. So
what are you going to
I got the title of Chief Research Scientist.
Okay, congratulations, nice.
Yeah. So currently been set up a few talks kind of for folks that are in Solana to understand what research is. Okay. But we're bringing a few folks outside of the ecosystem. I'm hoping to bring someone from, for example, from Polkadot, perhaps.
Nice.
We have some people from Celestia coming in to kind of talk to the folks that want to do research and understand, right? Because Solana, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, it depends, doesn't have a strong research background like Polkadot does.
Yeah.
Or quote unquote like Ethereum does. Yeah.
What direction do you want to pull Solana in? Where do you think the big gaps are in research right now?
There's a lot. Honestly, I should make a big thread and make it public so people FUD me or just argue with me.
Yeah, sure.
So I'll probably say like up front, I am one of the first people and that kind of said that the Solana virtual machine, right? It's not the full like stack, the validator stack, program runtime, etc. I said that the Solana virtual machine could be just simply this thing called RBPF, which is what runs the programs.
Okay.
Back then, a few months ago, people disagree with me. They put an article and they said entire stack. Past 2-3 weeks, they released another article after I had a talk with one of the guys, and all the people I'm pretty sure told them was that they mentioned that the RBPF could be a thing. So backstory to this. So I had this intuition, I thought about it, and then I actually met up with Sean.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, like Sean is like he's not a Solana maxi.
No, of course not.
Yeah, of course not. So we were talking about it, and they said they were doing some profiling and metrics for PokaVM. Again, so quote unquote, Solana runtime. And so he was just talking about, actually, if we just use RBPF, within a parachain, then we could run it, right? We don't have to port over the entire stack. Not the issue here is compatibility.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of like worked and I played around with.
So you could have a parachain or a blockchain, secured by Polkadot that's running this RBPF, and then you could have Solana contracts.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
Like then the stuff that I kind of open source and I kind of talk about,
Yeah.
and I need to write an article on this.
Okay.
Same was that then all you would need to do are like account mappings. So like a wrapper, right?
Yeah.
So you have the core thing that runs the programs. Now you create some kind of wrapper so that it's compatible or as compatible as Solana, quote unquote, right? Because that's important. But then, you know, people kind of fudded it and stuff like that. But then I was like, dude, look at Arbitrum. Look at Berachain. Arbitrum is not using Geth. Arbitrum built their own VM and they're making it compatible, right? They have their own opcodes and stuff like that. It's okay, right? It doesn't always have to be 100%, you know, compatible.
Yeah. Oh, wait 1 second. Oh, hey guys. Yeah, it's all good.
The big boss.
Just talking about how much we love Jam.
Yeah, Jam.
What do you think about Jam?
Okay, so what Jam is proposing is if we're in the circle of like blockchain innovation, right? Jam is trying to push this one angle like super high out, right? But everybody else is still stuck in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to take a little bit of time for them to catch up and realize and be like, oh, okay. And it's going to keep them moving forward, right? So,
well, it has kind of already happened with the sharding and everything like that, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I meme about this and like eigenlayer, right? And all this stuff is literally the relay chain. It's just another thing, you know? It's just, I mean, it's not good because people are not citing or giving credit. I'm not a fan of that explicitly. I know that ETH Denver and like one of the Eigen folks did mention that it was inspired by Polkadot, but I've never heard anything about this. And these people are academics, and it pisses me off because if you're an academic, right, doing research, you always cite your work. You say, look, you know, this is where we draw inspiration, or it's similar to this. There isn't, right? A lot of people don't do that.
Too much money to be made for honor.
I don't mean to get heated up.
No, it's all good.
Just saying, yeah.
The kind of cool thing about Jam, the way I'm understanding it, is it's kind of building this base machine that, you know, Polkadot's going to be on top of, but these other services are going to be on top. Is it possible that some of these other ecosystems today might be inclined to migrate onto this machine to just solve a lot of their problems that they may face in the future?
The candid comment or question maybe that nobody will ask, or maybe that I would make on Twitter.
Yeah.
They will fund me. I say, who needs this? Or what is the product experience or the user experience or the developer experience, right?
Okay, yeah.
Bottom line, because I think if we're building stuff that we think will help the future, but it's not helping people in the present, you know, it's going to be hard to get adoption. It's a lot of like, you know, creating content and stuff like that, showing people more, maybe bringing back the Cypherpunk Values and saying, yo, this is what's happening. Look, this is what happened with Facebook, you know, Cambridge Analytica, all this stuff along the way. I guarantee you, if you ask someone out there to tell you, you know, what's the issue with like centralization or like you're not owning your data, they don't know. They don't care.
Sure, I know,
Right? So that's the one thing, you know, that I think about like Jam. That is the candid question, right?
Okay.
Comment.
Well, Irvin, it was freaking sick to have you on the show. Finally, and sounds like we have a lot of tweets to catch up on in the coming weeks. Where can people find you if they're not following you already?
Yeah, you can just check out my Twitter,
which
or
is
X at Irvin IrvinXYZ.
Yeah, IrvinXYZ.
Yeah, and of course, always follow this guy in the crew.
Hey, thanks a lot. Yeah, we'll see you later, and I guess we'll go listen to Gav spin some tunes.
Watch some DJ.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks a lot.
All right.